Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. Proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards from Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeves. Support the show by using code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store, including a set of exclusive sleeves featuring the Magic Mics crew at AltarSleeves.com/MagicMics. Also, finally, our newest sponsor, Cardamajigs, has an upcoming Kickstarter for Cubamajigs Series 2. Cubamajigs are reusable booster packs for Magic Cube and more. Sign up for the Kickstarter launch notification at cubeks.com. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Erin Campbell.
Hello, everybody.
Reuben Bressler.
Man, what a perfect week to have a fourth additional thing to do during the intro for Evan to have to struggle through. But you did it. Now I'm vamping for time so that you can have some more green tea or whatever it is that you're doing. But yeah, it's great. It's great to be talking about Magic's Gathering news.
There you go. So get your chance at a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com by typing !raffle in the chat. But subscribe first to get 2 chances to win. And don't forget our raid at the end of the show to support a member of the community. Enter your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid tonight. As we come to our first pick, talking all about the D&D set. How do you guys feel about it sort of going forward?
It's a lot to read. I like to reference that meme that was going around that was like, I ain't reading all that, but I'm happy for you, or sad if you want me to be.
That
like,
happened. Yeah,
it's a lot to read. I don't dislike it, to be clear. Just because it's not for me does not mean I have any issue with anybody else liking it. But the amount of words, the verbosity of it is a lot. But it obviously has some really neat references. I do like the mention of liches. We have new goblins, which I like. We have some new things that enable dead things. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Reuben, this is your wheelhouse, man.
Yeah, it is my wheelhouse. Now, I have complicated thoughts on this because, of course, I'm a huge fan of both of these things. And so when you combine them, I can only expect perfection, right? And what I'm seeing is a lot of words. And I think Magic is at its best first when it doesn't take itself too seriously, which it very clearly is not taking itself too seriously in this set. So home run there. It's going with all the tropes and being funny and being goofy and like embracing its chaos. I enjoy that. It's also at its best when it's simple and it can teach new players quickly while also scratching the itch of the competitive side. And you're right, it's a lot of words. I did not think they were going to cross the bridge of actually rolling D20s. I saw Tasha's Hideous Laughter and was like, that's an interesting way to incorporate the number 20 without actually having to roll dice. Oh, by the way, here's 20 cards that roll a D20 and adds a whole nother layer of complexity of things you need to bring to a Magic tournament. With that said, the execution of that looks good. I mean, I'm happy with the cards that have come out so far. All of the names are, hearkening back to things that are in the monster manual or things that are in the player's handbook, and that makes me happy. So I think it's great so far.
There you go. So as we are wont to do when new sets come out, we're going to talk about 3 different cards that we wanted to chitter chat about. My first one here was Devour Intellect. This is an example of a new thing they've started doing, which is if a spell is cast using treasure mana. Devour Intellect is 1 black mana for a common sorcery that says target opponent discards a card. Sure, whatever. But if mana from a treasure was spent to cast the spell, instead that player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, then that card discards that card. Basically, it goes from just discard a card to Thoughtseize, and there are lots of at least 2 creatures I've seen so far that just make a treasure token when they enter the battlefield, and this thing to follow it up would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the mechanic of if this spell was cast with treasure mana is perfect for a D&D set. It's perfect for any Magic set. And that's a home run 10 out of 10 usage and ability on a card. This is an extremely powerful version of it. I mean, Thoughtseize is good on turn 1. Thoughtseize on turn 3 is also fine. And there are plenty of ways to get a treasure. So I love it.
And Reuben, what's the name of this creature with the brain and the feet? I know I've seen it before.
So that's called an Intellect Devourer.
There we go.
Hence Devour Intellect.
Gotcha.
They tend to be it's like a little brain with feet. And they tend to be the pets of Mind Flayers, one of which we've already seen in this set. I think it's like Xanathar or something. Mm-hmm. And they, when they hit you lose intelligence instead of just hit points. You don't just
they
take
also
damage.
have an ability that they can shrink and go in your head, or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, well, they can empty your brain out. So that's part of their attack is when they attack you, you lose some intellect. If you get down to 0, you go catatonic and they climb in your brain.
Gotcha.
Or they climb in your skull.
I remember
and then they pilot you like a Jaeger.
Wow.
Basically.
Yeah, I remember that part. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gross.
All right, horrifying. Got it. Cool. But ultimately,
the Underdark ain't no joke, Evan.
No.
I don't know. You want nice streets? These ain't nice streets. These are mean
I will never
streets.
forget the first time I ever saw the Mind Flayer entry, and it was like, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was like, so and so takes XD something damage as the tentacles puncture your skull, and I was just like, what?
Goodness. Well, that's horrifying.
Yep. They're scary.
I just, it has to be a hug from Jesus when you play the 2-mana thing that makes a treasure and you just thought sees them. And that's just, come on.
Absolutely.
It's got to feel great. My second creature here is one of the sweet dragons, one of the 5 mythic dragons. I believe this was the first one that was unveiled. Ebondeath Dracolich is 2 black, 2 generic mana for a 5/2 mythic legendary zombie dragon that has flash and flying and enters the battlefield tapped. You may cast Ebondeath Dracolich from your graveyard if a creature not named Ebondeath Dracolich died this turn, meaning at the end of their turn, you cast it. If they counter it, whatever, on your turn, you can just replay it when the shields are down, or it resolved, and now you have a 5/2 flash flyer that's going to kill them in 4 turns. This card both seems scary, and also that 2 toughness gives it just enough to where you have plenty of exile effects waiting for it.
Yeah, there's a long history of things that come back over and over again, having a small amount of toughness. Bloodghast, Icarid, the list goes on. And so this falls in line really nicely with that. I'm really excited about this card. If you're playing black, it's not hard to get things to die. And we have a couple other kind of aristocrat enablers here. So this is the dragon with a name that I'm most excited about.
Yeah. And speaking of names, if you thought Asmiranda, Mardica, Dice, and Akuldakar was hard, get ready for what Ebondeath used to be called, which was Shardan Sarah Vitriol. Before now, some dragons during life are like, my horde is nice, but I also want more, right? It's like how Xenagos was like, being a planeswalker is nice, but I also want to be a god. That's kind of what this guy was like, and decided to put necromantic energy into itself until it became a Dracolich. And that's kind of the story of where Ebondeath comes from. And this is a terrifying figure in the world of the Forgotten Realms.
I mean, it's a pretty terrifying figure in terms of Magic, I think, at this point as well. It certainly, for me, feels like one of the most pushed mythics in terms of creatures. But again, that's arguable depending on how good venturing into the dungeon is going to be, for example. My third and last card now, and Reuben can back me up on this. I've spoken to D&D nerds who are like, the Terrasque is like the scariest thing in D&D.
Well, yeah. Tell them what the magic card does.
Let's do it. So the Terrasque, which appreciated because the questing beast doesn't exist. The Terrasque is 3 green, 6 generic mana. So that's 9 mana for a 10/10 mythic legendary dinosaur. It has haste and ward 10 generic mana as long as it was cast. That means it comes into play with that stuff. It's not a trigger. It stays there forever. That ward 10 will never go away as long as you cast it. And whenever it attacks, it fights target creature defending player controls. That's freaky scary.
This reminds me of a Titan.
It is. It's essentially a Titan of the prime material plane. The Terrasque is, a lot of scary things in Dungeons and Dragons come from other planes. They come from the elemental plane of fire, the elemental whatever, the upper planes, or hell, or the abyss. This is from here. And this is a Titan, like, from the center of the earth. Researchers don't really know exactly where the Terrasque originally came from. There are many legends across many of the Forgotten Realms cultures of the Sleeper, of the Primordials, of, things before the Dawn War. And the Terrasque is one of them. And when the Terrasque awakens and explodes from the ground, it's, 50 feet long and, 10 stories tall and just destroys buildings and is ridiculous. Supposedly there's only one because, no one has ever seen more than one in one place. And it sleeps at the world's center, but no one knows because if you saw two in one place, what have you done so wrong? Right? But yeah, it's a terrifying monster, and it is, I gotta say, a little underwhelming in Magic card form. I would have thought they would have made this a 2020 because Dungeons and Dragons. But I'm okay with it. I think it's pretty cool.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because I saw a lot of feedback from people who were really disappointed by this card that felt like it has, such a name, like you said, and it has such a reputation. And, do you agree? Like, other than the feedback you just provided, like, were there other things you would have liked to have seen on this?
Not particularly. I just would have liked for it to be the biggest creature ever printed, what I think the Terrasque deserves to have. Like, the fact that it's smaller than it should have been, it's bigger than a Corrosion Cloud Scraper, this thing. It's a primordial monster of Earth, or not of Earth, but of the world. And I would have liked for it, even if it didn't have trample, even if it was a vanilla 2020, honestly, I would have been happier with that. I think it's pretty cool the way that they made it. Its power and toughness total is 20. Mm-hmm. Ward 10 is ward infinite. It might as well have hexproof at that point.
True.
And I think it's cool. It's not perfect.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Erin, what's your first card?
So the first card I chose, I'm going to go with the original version of Sacerdotisa Mortal de Myrkul, which translates to Deadly Priestess of Myrkul. So she is 2/2 black. She's a creature tiefling cleric. Skeletons, vampires, and zombies you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you can pay 1 colorless, and if you do, you create a 1/1 black skeleton creature token, which, because of her anthem effect, will make that a 2/2. And this is 2 power and 2 toughness. And so, as I mentioned before, I love this. I love aristocrat strategies. Seeing the word skeletons get +1/+1, I feel like is something you don't see all the time. This reminds me a lot of Death Baron, which of course I love. And the fact that it covers 3 different kinds of dead or undead creatures is right up my alley. So I'm a big fan. I look forward to finding ways to use this card.
Man, Erin, you would love Myrkul.
Yeah?
Myrkul, yeah. The Lord of the Dead, the Reaper, the Lord of Bones.
I'm listening.
But I choose the dead, and by doing so, I truly win, because all things must die, even gods. Just like the most metal of death deities in all of Faerun. And I mean, this is a really strong effect. I mean, not only being a lord, but a multi-lord that can also help create its own army, which is insane.
I can't remember where I read it. I want to say there was a Magic designer who discussed it to say that they wanted to kind of group up, not this one, sorry. They wanted to group up skeletons, vampires, and zombies as undead, just like historic are artifacts, sagas, or legendary spells, essentially.
I like it.
I thought that was super cool and super flavorful. For a whole set that has flavor words, to not have something like that feels a little off, but it's fine.
Especially because each of those decks has never really broken through in like older formats. It'd be, like, occasionally you'll see like a vampire deck in Pioneer, or you'll see like a zombie deck in Modern, but they don't really have any sort of sustained success. So perhaps if you bundled them all together, maybe that would make those decks easier to build, and maybe new archetypes could be born.
And also the rules text of return all undead from all graveyards to the battlefield. Target undead gains something.
Right.
Like,
all
that
undead gets so-and-so.
Makes me happy.
Right. And those 3 make sense to me. But either way, Erin, what's your second card?
So my next card is pretty much guaranteed to be going into my Rakdos the Showstopper deck. It is Orcus, Prince of Undeath. Orcus costs X, 2, a black and a red for a legendary creature demon with 5 power, 3 toughness, and flample. That's flying and trample. When Orcus enters the battlefield, choose one. Each other creature gets -X until end of turn. You lose X life, or you can return up to X target creature cards with total mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and they gain gain haste until end of turn. So my Rakdos deck sub-theme is Demon Tribal, and so this is really, really cool in that you have a bit of a board wipe here. The fact that it doesn't kill itself is really important, and if you're playing with the Demon Tribal deck, demons tend to have a lot of toughness, and so you really don't have to go too high with this thing to wipe the board. And also the ability to bring, a certain number of creatures back from your graveyard with haste, that's a game changer and still feels very Rakdos. I love what they're doing with black-red in this set. There are several black-red cards I've seen that seem to have a treasure theme to them. And so I think that's really, really cool and just a fresh take on this color combination.
Yeah, it seems like black-red, the draft archetype is going to be treasure, which I really like, because, the more chaotic and evil aspect is looting the body. And so being treasure-centric as an adventure when you're black-red, that makes sense, and it's great. It works perfectly. Orcus is a demon lord of the abyss. Something important to keep in mind, by the way, since we're here, is that demons and devils in Dungeons and Dragons are kind of the opposite in Magic the Gathering. Demons are chaotic evil in D&D, and devils are the contract signers. They're the lawful evil ones. In Magic, it's the demons that are signing the contract with Liliana, and the devils that are kind of throwing stones
or working
and being random. Yeah, exactly. And so demons come from the Nine Hells. Orcus is one of the great demon lords, otherwise known as the Shadow That Was, among other names. Lots of associated lore with Orcus, was a big part of one of the arcs of Critical Role at one point, in fact. He controls Thanatos, the 113th layer of the Abyss, and he's a badass, no joke about it.
I mean, the ability to return X target creature cards with a total mana value of X, and they're not going to go away. They don't exile at end of turn. They don't sacrifice at end of turn. They just get haste. That alone is fantastic. There was one more card, Erin, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the last card I'm really excited about may not seem like something I'm interested in, but I've made no secret of the fact that my Pashalik Mons EDH deck has become one of my favorite EDH decks, and I'm always looking for new goblins that do things other than just attack or specifically make more goblins. The third card I picked is Swarming Goblins. So Swarming Goblins is 4 colorless and a red for a 4/3 goblin that when it enters the battlefield, you roll a d20. If you get a 1 through 9, you get a 1/1 red goblin creature token with your 4/3. If you roll a 10 through 19, you get 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens with your 4/3. And if you get a 20, you get 3 1/1s with your 4/3. So, my goblin deck is more of an aristocrats deck, and so I want goblins that make other goblins. And I also have Kiki Jiki in the deck, so being able to make copies of this is really awesome. And I'm really excited for this card.
I mean, Reuben, this is D20.
It's pretty good.
D20s.
It's rolling D20s. This is also the best possible hit off of a Muxus, right? Because it's a 5-drop. So if you spin the wheel and get this off your Muxus and then roll the die and get a 20, it's the best possible high roll. I think it's great. This card's cool.
Yeah, this card's neat. And there's a whole theme around, it looks like blue and red cards, which is, roll D20s. If you roll, you can roll again, choose the higher one. They got a Crux.
When you roll, get
other
a thing.
Thumb.
Yeah.
Right. All sorts of cool things to do with rolling D20s. And to see that Wizards for so long, for so many years, was we cannot roll D6s, let alone D20s.
Right.
And it's we're rolling D20s on at least half a dozen plus cards at this point. Sure, let's go. Reuben, what's your first card?
So all of my cards are legends because I just like the lore, and I do like how they translated them into Magic. And the first one I'll talk about is a legendary artifact called the Deck of Many Things. The Deck of Many Things is a 5-mana mythic that says, pay 2 colorless and tap, roll a d20, and then you subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. Okay, so that's a little complicated.
Is that a flavorful thing from the Deck of Many Things?
The number of cards in your hand thing is not really a flavorful thing. I'll get into the flavor once I'm done reading the card.
Sure.
So on a 1 to 9, after subtracting the number of cards in your hand, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. On a 10 to a 19, you draw 2 cards. On a 20, put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. When that creature dies, its owner loses the game.
Oof.
Which is a bizarre win condition, and I pity anyone who has to deal with that. But yeah, that's certainly a fun way to try to I'm sure I'll win a game someone will win a game to that, and it'll be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as I understand it, if anyone's confused, there's a difference between owner and controller. And so even though you may have the creature, you don't own it, if I get that correctly.
Yeah. It's not going home with you.
Yeah.
Right. So the deck of many things is what we in the dungeon mastering business call a campaign ruiner. If you roll it on your magic items table, it will change the course of your campaign. Period. Full stop. It is the most chaotic, probably most dangerous, wondrous item that is available in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's a 22 card deck of tarot cards, and depending on what card is drawn, things can just go crazy. For example, you can gain 10,000 experience points. Your soul becomes trapped in another dimension. You gain a major boon. You gain a major nemesis that will stop at nothing to hunt you down. There are just absolutely crazy things that happen. And oh, by the way, you have to choose how many cards you're drawing from the deck before you draw them. So you say, how many cards are you drawing? 3. You have to draw 3, and then you can never draw from the deck again.
Really?
Yeah, it's a absolutely wild thing. It's very scary.
It
from an in-game
incredible.
And out-of-game standpoint.
Yeah, the idea that it has this that little sort of that little piece of text that makes you subtract your hand size, meaning that if you want to do that critical hit, if you want to get that 20 to try to get the creature, it has to be on your upkeep right before you draw or after you play your land or whatever, and be like, fingers crossed, let's do this. And wow, it's just it's going to lead to really fun experiences.
I do think that the flavor of it is that it is really something that you lean on at your lowest, when you're about to die, when you're about to be killed, when you're about to be defeated in some way. You go, well, I mean, might as well take the luck of the draw.
There you go. All right. So what's your second card?
My second card is another major character from the world, and I did an entire season of the Broken Pact with Zerial, Archduke of Avernus. Zerial Archduke of Avernus is a 4-mana red planeswalker. I'm listening. 2 colorless red. Legendary planeswalker Zariel with loyalty of 4. Starting loyalty of 4. +1, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until the end of the turn. 0, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target, as we've seen on devils before. And -6, you gain an emblem with, at the end of the first combat phase on your turn, untap target creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Zariel is the leader of Avernus, the first layer of hell. She used to be an angel. She's a fallen angel that fell to Avernus under... I don't want to spoil Descent into Avernus story, but she fell to hell, and she wields a magic sword and is constantly on the front lines of the Blood War, which is the war between the devils and the demons. She's super powerful, and she commands legions, as she does with her 0 ability, and this is a really cool version of what she can do.
Yeah, this is one of those cards where I feel like you feel like you kind of have to play it. Is the devil making ability enough? Is it in a green-red shell where you power this out on turn 3 and give your creatures haste, from then on out? Or was this kind of toned down a little bit because, we have dealt with, honestly, the Throne of Eldraine issue now for a year and a half plus of, could we just not have everything be overpowered? And they're like, this planeswalker's fine. Cool, it's flavorful, does what you wanted to do in D&D. It doesn't have to be the greatest planeswalker at 4 mana. It's fine. I'll take it.
It's good value. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this card.
Sure.
So,
and what's your last one?
My last card is another card that is on the cover of a Dungeons and Dragons supplement. We go from Descent into Avernus to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Xanathar is my next pick. I misspelled it. Xanathar is the Guild Kingpin, 4 colorless blue-black for a 5/6 legendary creature Beholder. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. Until end of turn, that player can't cast spells. You may look at the top card of their library anytime. You may play the top card of their library, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast spells in this way. Yeah, people have been looking at this card and we're like, this is my new commander, 100%. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This thing is the coolest thing that's ever been printed. And it does definitely feel very cool, and it also fits flavorfully. He's known as the Eye because he's a beholder, and he's also a infamous like gang leader, crime lord. He runs one of the thieves guilds in Skullport, and he's a megalomaniacal, self-important political figure that has some reflections of other current political figures that you'll see. And he's a crazy dude, and he's just a fun bad guy, and I'm really excited that he's on a Magic card.
There you go. This is a super cool card that's going to be super impactful in the formats I think they wanted it to be. This isn't, I feel like, the next standard superstar or whatever, and they didn't want it to be. They're like, cool, flavorful is what the D&D people are looking for. Let's go. So one of the things that move on here to Gal the Townsfolk a little bit, just so I can use the split screen here. Part of what they did with the set, as we've spoken of over the weeks here, was they made the rulebook cards. They did the module cards, which look, I think, absolutely incredible. And of course, they've been doing the extended art cards and stuff for a while. But one of the things that they did, and I'll bring one of these on screen here, and again, we've spoken about this, which is the flavor words, as they call them, which is you have the ability, and the ability has words in front of them that don't mean anything other than, isn't it cool that we put a word in front of them? For example, would be any card that starts with the word you. I'm trying to find one here real fast. You happen on a Glade, a green 2 generic mana for a uncommon instant that says choose one, journey on, dash, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle, or make camp, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. And Reuben, as I understand it, these are all classic D&D terms that are being used on a card.
Absolutely, yeah. You find a cursed idol. What do you want to do with it? You find 2 goblins. What do you want to do with them? You come onto the Knoll camp. I think that it's perfect how they're telling the story with, how you would run a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Choose your weapon. Do you want 2-weapon fighting or do you want archery? I think that is so flavorful and perfect. I know that it is a lot of words,
right?
But in this case, I feel like the flavor of them, it is flavor text,
right?
In the strictest possible sense. And I love that.
So somebody asked Mark Rosewater on his Blogatog, they said, are flavor words something we should expect in future Magic sets? He says it's on the table, more likely for universes beyond than normal Magic. I implore them to use it in normal Magic. If you wanted to get a feeling of how Tezzeret, is making this spell happen, or something that a Johnny is feeling strongly, or, whatever, like, can you just imagine War of the Spark having so many of these different flavor words on all those spells that meant so much to Liliana, that meant so much to Gideon's Last Stand, stuff like that. Like, those would have been hugely impactful moments. If anything, one of the most, the coolest things about the whole set is the flavor words. I mean,
I don't know. See, I disagree.
Fantastic.
I think that these sort of descriptions before the flavor text could really only work with a D&D setting where, you really are telling that story, and where this is something that you might actually say to somebody of, you happen on a glade or you've met some goblins. And I don't think that's something you'd really run into in any other set. And I mean, I wouldn't be angry about it if they put it in other sets, but I think this is something that for now is very unique to this game. And I think it's something we don't necessarily need to wear out. We don't necessarily need to wear out our toys, but we can have toys, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. On the one hand, certainly it fits here perfectly. I think the modal cards where you make 2 choices and they have the flavor choices, like the bards that have, Bardic Inspiration and Song of Rest and things like that. I think that is the perfect implementation of that. in terms of the ability words, where we see the pack tactics of ability on a number of cards, for example, on like the Alpha Werewolf and on the Kobold and all those cards, we've seen that before. That's just landfall. We've seen that on other Magic cards before. And so I agree with Erin in the sense that this is definitely something that makes the Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms sets unique. And I also agree with Evan that it's super dope and very cool, and I would be interested to see how in the future if they get used, because I think it's a very easy way to sneak flavor onto cards that might not have room for flavor text, or ways to tell the story. I think that that's great. I think that if you could go like a Johnny's whatever and choose Protect Elspeth or Jump in Front of the Blade, right? It's like, if Gideon's Reproach was like Ride Rakdos or Attack Nicol Bolas, and those were two different, modes, I think that would still have the intended effect that we got here. However, it is most at home in Dungeons and Dragons. It is most flavorful here.
Yeah. It would be like if you were at the Ren Fair and then you went to McDonald's and like you stand in line, you're like, "Hello, my lady, I would like to consume some of your fried potatoes." And she's like,
anachronistic.
It's appropriate when you're at the Ren Fair, but like when you're at the real world, like you got to come back, Jimmy.
Gets a little weird. Okay. I can understand if they use it just for Warhammer and Warhammer terms, or Lord of the Rings and special Lord of the Rings kind of phrases from the books and stuff.
Yeah.
Would be totally okay with that as well.
I also don't think this will be the last Dungeons and Dragons set we ever see.
For sure.
So we could return to, you happen on or whatever.
There you go. So moving on here to Gather the Townsfolk. The first thing here to discuss is that Pastimes is going to have Magic the Gathering events at Gen Con. Gen Con is held September 16th through 19th this year. It was pushed back a little bit for obvious reasons, but they said Commander, Booster Draft, Standard, Two-Headed Giant, Modern, including pre-release events for Innistrad Midnight Hunt will also be there, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Gen Con is one of the first events to really try reopening since the pandemic. So I'm interested to see how it's going to go. And it does sound like they are trying to take precautions. I do believe there's a cap on attendance and things like that. And so, if you feel comfortable enough to go, and certainly if you're fully vaccinated, I would encourage you to support them, because if these things are not successful, that could certainly delay the resurgence of events. And not that it's anybody's responsibility, like just to be clear about that, but, these are going to be test runs. And so we do need to see where people are at. And, if this ends up going well, maybe we'll have some more events by the end of the year. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, things are starting to open a little bit. Events are starting to happen again in stores and whatnot. People are starting to, be able to have the gatherings again, which is terrific. So to hear this is encouraging news. Again, this is, they're going to abide by safety guidelines, and obviously the event's going to be very unique in that regard. But, Magic coming to Gen Con.
I will say one nice thing about Gen Con is if you want to play Magic at Gen Con, you could basically do it all day long. Like there are 24-hour events happening all the way, starting at Winnaboxes and going up to, Grand Melees at midnight. I remember doing those. And so whatever you're into, there's an event for you.
There you go. So moving on here there were some arena announcements, which mentioned basically that you can now pre-order the D&D product if you're so inclined. It talks about the different bundles that you can have. Erin's already bought both of them. Don't worry. The mirror stuff we spoke about a few weeks ago is finally being implemented, where they have eroded these overpowered cards to not be overpowered, like Field of the Dead,
and nerfed some of them into the ground.
I mean, I guess Nexus of Fate is fine as a 7-mana time walk. It's fine. Oko is a -2.
Wow.
Oko's fine.
I mean, the zombies interplay tapped, and Field of the Dead is legendary.
The little necromantic dragon is Ebondeath, by the way, and it is adorable. It is incredible. There are Lolth sleeves and Eliwick Tumblestrom sleeves, which I believe, by the way, I think Eliwick Tumblestrom is a D&D character, but came to Magic the Gathering first, if I'm not mistaken. I think that she is she's like going to be in the Strixhaven D&D book, but I'm pretty sure that this card of hers in this set is like her coming out party. I'm pretty sure.
I do feel like one of the things we missed when we discussed them before was we missed that Teferi not only is going up to 4 mana, but also gets 5 loyalty counters now, which is pretty sweet.
He's got a little bit of a dad bod now. I think that's one of the ones that's fine. Like, that's a good change for the health because it's turn 4. And it'll still be a very powerful card as opposed to some of them that are just not going to.
I mean, Wilderness Reclamation is now a punchline.
Yeah, it's
Are you serious?
Yeah. Veil of Summer is also kind of bad at twice as much mana, I think. I mean, it's still a counter spell. Like, it's still like, what's that card? Like, counter target spell, draw a card. I mean, it's still 2 mana to do that, but you're also not going to walk into it nearly as much. Yeah.
Right. So, and, some mentioned that, hey, Uro is still busted, but, gaining 3 life, drawing a card versus, like, it also ramps you while doing all of that, I think at least deserves some testing. Winota only looking at the top 4 instead of the top 6 was also kind of ridiculous, which is great. The Chromatic Cube is happening. This was designed by David McDarby. Okay. And it's way, way better than the last cube, I assure you. Almost particularly because of this article. The fact that he lays out what his archetypes are, what you're looking for, and why you're drafting them. This was totally absent of whatever the previous cube was. You just hope to open a bunch of hoping to open Ulamog, or you hoping to open Patient Rebuilding or Teferi's Tutelage, and that was your deck.
You missed a perfect segue. You were talking about dad bods, and then you skip Kibler playing Commander with Post Malone.
I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah. The problem, what you did was you expected Erin to be able to skip over the top, which was a mistake.
Oh. I didn't. Well, we haven't skipped it yet. We're still on arena announcements. So, what I did note that there is now images of Brian Kibler hanging out with Post Malone. That's a real thing.
Well, you also buried the lead that Kibler is digging Commander. He posted a tweet the other day where he was talking about playing Commander with Post Malone, and the thread sort of descends into madness where he goes, I'm going through my collection to find card, and it's the most Kibler deck. Like, it has Dragon Lord Atarka, all of the things you would expect Kibler to be playing, and then he says, I don't have a Taiga. And then he goes, I've only ever played these colors. I can't believe I have this card. And then he goes, I was supposed to go out tonight. And so Kibler has been bitten by the Commander bug. And then he posts something later that was like, I was supposed to stream and I've stayed up all night looking for Commander. And so, I can't think of anybody, that I would rather be playing Commander with. It's great to see him finding a way to come back to Magic on his own terms, playing a deck that is obviously him. And it's great. I'm happy to see him. And Kibler just aging very well. He's what, 40 now? 40? Yeah.
He is my age, ladies and gentlemen. So
he is 40.
Yeah, there you go.
Kibler is our Sean Connery. Like, he will just always be able to get it. Like, just
I mean, I see him relatively often because we go to the same LARP, and he's like a terrifying man when it comes to swinging foam swords. It is very scary to see him in combat. And so seeing him live his best life gives me hope for the future.
Absolutely.
There you go. So for those who enjoy minis, unpainted minis in particular, more are coming from WizKids. Bring them up here on the screen. I would note that these are 3D representations of what they ultimately will be. But if those are looking for Omnath, if you're looking for some zombies, if you're looking for a ghoul that you need to spice up, whether it is, just something to hang out around your office, or if you want to do D&D adventures with magic characters, they're going to make a Zamone. That's going to be awesome.
That Mage Hunter is creepy. Oh, the ghoul. The ghoul is an abattoir ghoul or a butcher or something.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So Quintorius, Field Historian, is going to show up now as a miniature.
We don't have enough Loxodon miniatures, so I'm glad we got that one.
Yeah, and get Killian as a miniature. I think that's really cool.
Great.
So that's sweet. Let's see here. Rachel Agnes Baytog. Congratulations to her as now the senior brand manager for Magic the Gathering.
It sounds like there were a number of promotions or job changes that were handed out recently at Wizards. I think we talked about Lee Sharp getting promoted last week. And, if there's one thing that Rachel does very well, Rachel has an uncanny ability to generate engagement. Like, if you look at her Twitter feed, I mean, she has 28,000 followers, and she's very unique in that we don't know very much about her. Like, and I certainly don't mean that in any sort of negative way, but she really just has her finger on memes and ways to word things. And, without letting us know too much about her, she's managed to generate quite a bit here. I mean, you look at all of her tweets here, 288 likes, 3,000 likes, 86 retweets. Like, if you need to get your message out there, she's your girl. And so I'm not surprised that she's doing well in a sort of communications type environment or an environment where she needs to generate engagement or where she needs to get people excited about something.
There you go. So congratulations to her. I hope she does well. Yeah. I'm sometimes both like, hey, that person's been a wizard a long time. And the other half is, hey, is that person's gone? No one said anything. Like it feels honestly like it's like they're there a long, long, long time, or they're there 6 months and we don't hear about them ever again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it goes. Moving on here to some desperate ravings. Magic Legends. Ladies and gentlemen.
Rip Magic Legends. Let me pull up the Mixies.
How long did this last? 3 months?
About 3-ish, maybe 6-ish months almost, depending on how alpha, beta you want to get into it. But let me fix the thing here real fast. Okay, we're good. Which is, they say here Magic Legends is shutting down on October 31st, 2021. Read the full statement in FAQ. That is with heavy hearts that they announced Magic Legends will be shutting down. All the players who spent money in game will be refunded their full purchase amounts. Service will remain open to play until closing day. They're closing the Zen shop, whatever that is, in a beta. Mm-hmm. And later this week, all items will instead be purchasable using Aether or free in-game currency. So they say our vision for Magic Legends missed the mark, but they're proud of what they achieved. You missed the mark a lot. We tried. I felt like I didn't want to sort of jump in and be like, this is terrible, blah, blah, but like I had no fun playing it, like actual zero. I didn't get it and I didn't like it, and I'm not surprised.
It was just a bust coming out of the gate. I mean, when you have people that are like on your payroll or that are on your list of being like your sponsored creators and they can't even be arsed to say anything nice about it. Like, Day 9 famously posted a scathing review, and, Day 9 is somebody who's pretty optimistic about things that, Wizards does. And so I didn't see any positive press around it. I didn't see a lot of people streaming it. I certainly didn't see a lot of people watching it. And, we've talked about this time and time again. I think the real fatal flaw was that they didn't lean into themselves enough, where, you have this amazing IP and yet you're still making up names for spells. Like, all you have to do is go in Scryfall and there are your spell names. And so I just don't understand why it was that difficult. The fact that they had a massive bait and switch from, being advertised as this MMO, people were thinking more along the lines of like WoW or maybe EverQuest or, Rift or something like that. And then all of a sudden you're getting images of a Diablo type game and people are going, this is not what we signed up for. And, it was just plagued with issues from the beginning. And I don't really know what the mark was, but I mean, we can all agree that they didn't hit it. I don't think anybody was surprised by this. It's a little unfortunate that there are, a lot of job losses here. I think it was Cryptic Studios that were posting the losses. And so that's not okay. And we definitely feel bad for those folks and hope they move on to greener pastures. But, the game as a whole was just never going to work.
Particularly because those designers I believe that they kept the designers the whole process. So they came in expecting to build an MMO and then were told, mid-ride that we're changing the game, we're changing the style, we're doing a bunch of things differently. We're not going to get we're getting the IP, but we're not using the IP to the fullest of its abilities. If you want to know what the strength of an IP looks like, look at the Forgotten Realms set. We see these little, like, 2 phrases as a flavor word, and we're like, oh, pack tactics makes me feel happy in my heart. If those were literally any other 2 words that were like similar but not the same to pack tactics, we don't care. And that's what they did with Magic Legends. So
how can you say you're going to make a game about Magic, the world of Magic, the incredible planes and characters and stuff in Magic, and not use the artwork from Magic cards? I just don't get it.
Or the words or anything. It didn't feel like
Magic. Not the names, not the art, not the mana cost when the names did get kind of close or were close. Like, and it just didn't make any sense.
Pepsi okay? It's not even that. This is like the Costco off-brand of cola.
Right. This is Dr. Thunder of like Diablos and of Magic Diablos even. Like, it's weird to me when I feel like all of the press leading up to it was, these are Magic players. They know what's up. They know what's cool to Magic. They've played Magic for a long time.
It sucks.
And
it reeks of meddling from too many hands, right? Like, clearly this was not a design issue, because the people who were there were designing the game, and then people kept saying, change this, change this, change this, change this, change this, and it just died to committee.
And they wanted to have this like deck of spells that you drew from, but it never mattered. You just smack the thing, just do the thing, make stuff happen. Because in all of the action RPGs that you play, that's how it works. You don't draw from a deck of spells, nor do you care what mana that you have, which wasn't even mana to start with. So why even have mana costs? Yeah. None of it made any sense. No. And that's how we got to where we are today. So one of the things here for our next topic here being the Midnight Hunt pre-release, something they kind of mention here is that they're going to change the pre-release packs to ship in cases of 15, and you're now going to get set boosters instead of draft boosters as prizes. Now, note, they also encompass this in language saying that, look, players were asking for this, y'all. We said, do you want things with guaranteed foils or not guaranteed foils? And they said, we want guaranteed foils, y'all. And that's how it works. So suddenly now we're up to 64% of surveyed customers said they'd rather have 2 call time set boosters than 3 call time draft boosters. And that set booster stuff increased over 9% or almost 9% over Zendikar Rising. And so here they say the growing enthusiasm makes sense. Set boosters are optimized to make opening boosters as fun as possible. This is also where I hear the line. This is over the years where inside Wizards, they go, no one knows what a draft is. No one knows how to play draft. They don't even care. They've never played draft. They just open packs, and that's what it is. And what we've seen bit by bit, month by month, particularly the last 7 to 9 months, which is the set boosters debuted, and Wizards has pushed them and pushed them and pushed them. You can no longer pick up draft boosters during your pre-release. You can get all the set booster boxes you want, but you can't get draft boosters. You got to wait all the way to the release of the set, and that's a giant feel bad. And that feel bad is built in to then make you incentivized to buy the set boosters because they're available right now. You want the sweet new cards right now. And so those have a higher sales as a result. And so then we have that churn of, look, set boosters sold really well. People are asking for set boosters. Who's playing draft anyway? Have they asked how many people even know what a draft is? To the point where, and I tweeted this the other day, I think draft boosters are on a chopping block somewhere. And B, I think they're going to be replaced with a Jumpstart type product because Jumpstart fixed the draft, the limited problem of buy booster A, buy booster B, shuffle them together. You can now play a limited game of Magic. Whereas before, you need to know what a draft is. You need to have 3 packs. You have a bunch of people who know what that means. You need to have the
skill to be able to evaluate cards in a draft format and to be able to build a deck. I've always said that when I build decks, I like to point to this meme of like, there's a meme that went around of like, on the one hand, there was a cat riding a unicorn with like a rainbow behind it. And that's how most people's draft decks turn out. And then you have me with like Ralph Wiggum and an ice cream cone on my forehead saying I'm a unicorn. Like I just do not have the skill set to draft. And you're right. If I knew that I could just pick up a jumpstart, I'm one of those people who has no interest in drafting. You know, I've never even thought about going on the pro tour because I'd have to draft. And so if you just gave me a sort of jumpstart experience, I'd play limited with you. Absolutely.
I mean, this to me would be, and again, part of it is, you know, they're changing the prizes and that affects stores. But for me, like the longer tail of this is draft boosters have gotten less and less attention, less and less focus. And if you're able to say, look, we could make a set with, you know, Jumpstart type packs with some new cards, maybe like 50 or 75 new cards, not 300. And we can make a limited environment for that. And it could still be a fun limited environment, just like Jumpstart is now. But, you know, you don't have to know how to draft or know what a draft is or blah, blah, blah. I mean, maybe. I'm trying to read the tea leaves, and the tea leaves say draft boosters are not long for this world in some fashion or other.
The most concerning thing you said, which I'm not sure if it was apocryphal from you or if it was like fact somewhere, was the survey that came out and the survey that said, do you want foils or not? If there was literally that survey came out and that was literally the question, that is a biased question. That is an algorithm that is biased, right? Because you're not asking the right question. You're asking a question that you're hoping gives you the right answer, which Wizards wants to hear, which is we don't want to make draft boosters anymore. I assume that's the end goal here. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know what the difference is for their bottom line, but if the answer you want to hear back is, yes, I want draft or set boosters instead of draft boosters at my pre-release, the question you ask isn't, do you want set boosters or draft boosters? The question you ask is, do you want foils or not? Right? So if that question was physically asked on a survey somewhere, that's more reading tea leaves to me of they have a decision already made and they're just waiting until they can put enough weight behind it to follow through on it. If that is apocryphal, what you said, if there wasn't that survey or that sort of leaning doesn't exactly exist, then maybe there's something else that can be done here. Maybe maybe it is true that like what they say, and no one's ever heard of booster draft and nobody cares about booster packs anymore. I don't know because I don't work in Wizards, but it seems like there's an agenda of getting rid of boosters, and whether that agenda is based in number. If the agenda is based in numbers, get rid of draft boosters. Who cares? That's what's making you more money. Well, if the agenda is based in something else, that's a problem.
We've had multiple sets now in a row where on a distributor level, we want draft boosters and they don't have them. And they'll say, but do you want set boosters? And we go, no. Draft boosters, customers are asking for draft boosters, and they go, set boosters? And you go, no, I want draft. It's like they just won't, like this thing that just keeps coming up. It just keeps happening over and over again. And so, like I understand that.
Can you even do a pre-release with set boosters?
No, because you can't draft. You can't seal them.
I still don't know the difference, to be honest.
Well, the thing about set boosters as a box, you get less packs, you get less cards. Like you do get more foils, you get guaranteed foils and all that good stuff.
That's the bottom line.
But it's less cards for more money than a draft booster box. That's always been kind of the bottom line.
It's literally more dollars per ounce shipped for Wizards to send out set boosters than draft boosters. That makes total sense now. Sure. Now I get it.
Right. And I understand how they are incentivized. And if you were an executive at Wizards, you would create a scenario where the players want the set boosters. The set boosters sell better than the draft boosters. When you set up all these things and all these things fall in line, it is because you made them that way. You created the narrative that you wanted to exist. And on boots on the ground, players still like draft boosters, but boots in the executive suite,
pre-release,
they want to sell set boosters because they get more money for less product. I don't know how else to put it. Moving on here to other grievances. There was an open letter from Stanislav Sivka and some other pros who sent to the Hasbro CEO saying, hey guys, you know how you took $750,000 out of the World Championships? Could you not do that?
This feels like a long shot.
It is.
Obviously their feelings are valid. They have every right to feel like something was taken from them, and they have every right to feel slighted by that. But, as we've said many times in this show, there just wasn't, the pro circuit was, I think people have sort of rose-colored glasses when it comes to the importance of pros and what this meant. And, unfortunately, it's just not where their focus is, and they just weren't seeing the returns on it. And, Wizards has made it very clear that they're here to make money. And, those resources were probably better served elsewhere. And so I do feel for them, but I didn't really have a lot of faith in this actually, working or getting anywhere.
It's an open letter. The intended readers are not Hasbro. Right. So it got the message where it needed to be, which is into the hands of 675 retweets and Magic Mics. So, we're talking about it, and we feel your pain, guys, but they don't care.
Right. It's one of those where it's legitimately hard to kind of feel bad for the 0.8% Magic players, right? The super duper top echelons.
I think it's possible. We had
hashtag pay the pros less than 3 years ago.
I don't think that the answer, like I said, I think everybody, what you're feeling is valid. I would never tell somebody that how they feel isn't, worthy or anything like that. But, you do bring up a good argument, though, of that this isn't something that's going to affect the majority of players. So that might have been one of the things that tied into this decision of, we can spend $750,000 on 10 people, or we can put that $750,000 towards a wider audience and see some more returns on that. And so I might not have worded it the way that you did, but I agree that might have been one of the factors of why they did this was...
Right. I mean, for a very long time, not just recently, but for years now, I had heard that Wizards didn't necessarily like really high level competitive Magic. And then you get to the point where you say, what can you do with $750,000? You can hire a bunch of people. You can hold a bunch of events. You could do a ton of promo stuff for stores. I mean, you could do a ton of promo stuff just for players who buy product. Yeah. I mean, you could go nuts with $750,000. Or you could give it to 10 people. Yep. And I understand that look, there's going to be some PR backlash, but holy cow, what we could do with $750K versus what we're doing.
And I would even argue, is there a backlash? Because the numbers are still coming in and it's not hurting the bottom line. And so
if people don't care about draft boosters, then people are certainly not going to care about whatever this is.
Unfortunately, I think that's true. Again, it's a case of overestimating the importance of pro Magic. The truth is, if you go to the local game store and say, who's Stanislav Slivka, they're not going to know who that is. And, it feels, if you're in that community and you're invested in that, it feels like a really big slight. But is the majority of the Magic community upset about this? I just don't think they are.
Right. And it's one of those where I understand. You know what I mean? I feel for them. I get that they made decisions. I understand that they dedicated themselves to Magic when they could have dedicated themselves elsewhere. But
what this open letter should have been is in attorney letterhead and sent to the legal offices. That's the direction this needs to go in, because you're not going to get attention shouting at the clouds. Yeah. You're going to get attention through the only thing Wizards cares about, which is their wallets.
Right. And I'm not even sure that would have worked, but I do feel for them, and I hope that they're able to bounce back from this and find, something else that can be profitable for them or that they can feel good about, which we've seen many pros already do, which is great.
I mean, I would say if there's one thing I've seen work with Wizards, it is if legal says jump, they say how high.
Right.
It's just how it works. Mm-hmm. Moving on here, Wizards worked with Mr. Beast there for a minute, playing some games for about an hour. They were supposed to choose two different people who got $25,000 and crickets. And some people on Reddit were like, look, they needed to email them by the 23rd of June in order to get a copy of the winners list. And they didn't get anything. They got no answer whatsoever. And so then there was kind of this narrative of Wizards is doing all these things. There's the Greenlight project we didn't hear anything about. There's this Mr. Beast thing we didn't hear anybody about. And then kind of not out of nowhere, but certainly Wizards just so happened to tweet, just the other day here, where they're like, we're totally going to pick winners, you guys. We're totally picking over here. They say, hey, everyone, we've seen a lot of chatter about the FTM At Home featuring Mr. Beast event winners today. We do have two winners who will be announced publicly soon. That was on June 28th. We still have heard nothing.
So this one I'm fine with because this one has production behind it. One assumes that Mr. Beast is going to fly out to wherever the winners are and make YouTube videos and create content.
I saw something where he wasn't going to.
I was going to say, are we sure about that?
I thought I saw
that was my assumption.
No, I mean, and I could be wrong, but from what I saw from my, small amount of preliminary research, it sounds like he's kind of over this, or he's no longer, he did what he needed to do and he's no longer involved, if I understood that correctly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So stupid.
I mean, is what it is.
But I will say, one thing that has come about from this issue with the pros is that, the audience, the player base is a lot more vigilant now, where, we've seen the disappearing money from the Pro Tour or Worlds or what have you. There is still the Greenlight Fund, which has still rubbed people the wrong way of, where did that money go? And so, people are starting to hold Wizards' feet to the fire, which, I think is a good thing, because you certainly don't want them to think that this is okay. I don't know how much good it's going to do, but I do appreciate that people are going, okay, we're noticing a pattern here and we're going to try to hold you to it. I do appreciate the effort.
And this is one of the things where you do get to say, legal would get involved. These are lottery rules. You announce the rules. You have to respond to them. You do have to announce the winners, so on and so forth. Moving on here to some splash damage. You'll have a ton of time left, and Lord knows my voice is just going to drop out at some point. But I definitely wanted to bring up the fact that Channel Fireball announced Flesh and Blood events in the United States. They're going to have 5 events in Las Vegas, September 10th, Dallas, Fort Worth, October 15th, Cincinnati, October 22nd, and Orlando, November 5th through 7th is going to be both a Grand Prix, what they call the Calling, and a U.S. Nationals event, which is, again, all being run by Channel Fireball, all working with the Flesh and Blood team. This is a game that has gotten more and more attention as time has gone on. But my concern, and it's something we talked about in the pre-show, which is the player base building, or is it the people who want to buy and sell the first edition stuff, the ones really driving Flesh and Blood?
Yeah,
right.
They have the professor on board. The professor recently did a video promoting this and implying that he'll be there. So I'm anxious to see. I don't know too much about this, but I do know how many games have come and gone, over the last couple of years that we thought were going to be the next thing. And it didn't really go anywhere. So I wish him well, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye on this to see what happens.
I just can't imagine that more parents would let their kids play a game called Flesh and Blood than a game called Magic or Pokemon. It's always flabbergasted me. And they went with, what's a game that is going to convince parents that this is not satanic magic? Is Flesh and Blood.
And I get that they try to be clever about it, and they're like, we don't want you to play online. We want you to play in the flesh and blood. I get that again, but it's like, you understand this is not a great name. Yeah. Whatever. The point is of $10,000 events plus a $50,000 nationals event. Pretty sweet.
Remains to be seen if it's, real or if it's versus system.
There you go. Or even like WoW TCG. Both of those games were propped up for years, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, Erin, please explain this TSR nonsense.
All right, I'm going to do my best here. So, TSR Games has been in the news for the last week or so, and I want to clarify who the players are, because there's some the same name is being used multiple times, and the name also is a callback to an earlier company which you may know and love. So there is TSR, which was founded by Gary Gygax, I believe, who was the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. That's the OG TSR games.
Yeah, that's the one that Wizards purchased.
Correct.
Right.
Then there's another company called TSR Games, which I believe made a game called Top Secret or something secret.
Giant Lands or something too.
So they have made a game, and they are a company. And there's another company called TSR Games, which is co-founded, or the VP is Gary Gygax's son, Ernie, I believe. They seem to be a game company in name rather than spirit. Like, they don't seem to have any successful projects to their name, and seem to be very ambitious, but don't seem to be as successful as the previous two entities. Ernie did an interview to promote another game or two he's trying to get going, and said some really stupid things about trans people and Native American folks. There was a huge outcry on Twitter. People got the names a little bit confused, and so that led to this sort of rehashing of what all of these companies mean and what they do, and then various other gaming events like Gen Con and Origins all came forward and said that they weren't going to support Gygax's son and his TSR games. But if you've been seeing TSR all over your social media, this is why. It's just important to note which TSR you should be concerned about, because two of them are, beloved or semi-respectable people, and the other one is just incredibly seedy and appears to espouse values that the rest of us do not really condone. And controversial. Their Twitter account has been going through it. And just all sorts of messiness and drama as they're wont to do.
I would also add that the two members of the Gygax family that I've met are pleasant, normal people and do not go on screeds like this. So this appears to be this is a Bob's Dugout situation. If you all have been fans of the show for a long time, this is a fire and dice style meltdown. We'll put it on the Mount Rushmore. We'll put it in the annals of history, or the annals of history. So
Bob's Dugout. There we go. It was 4 years ago. Facebook just reminded me it was about 4 years ago that happened.
Yeah, this is just such a cluster, and I'm so sad that the other folks who are associated with TSRs and Gygaxes and all of the big associations that have to do with that have to deal with this at all.
Yeah,
you got to be real careful when you open your mouth on the internet. I don't, when you're in a situation where you're trying to be a spokesperson for a company, you're trying to sell a creative work, you're trying to talk about different cultures or different people. I mean, the landmines are there, and the boy stepped on so many of them.
I mean, he really did sort of follow the playbook of, say multiple stupid things, double down on the stupid things, apologize for everything but the stupid things. And, I think the gaming industry has just shown that they're just not about that. Even if you're not a social justice person, even if you're not a feminist, it's still just good business to want more people playing your game. And so why would you say or do things that are going to be that exclusionary and that hurtful and think it's going to get you anywhere, either on a social scale or on a monetary scale? Like, these guys just don't get it. And this playbook is just, we've seen it time and time again, and they never learn. And it's just, you can just sort of predict how this is going to go at some point. There's the double down. Okay, here we go. Oh, there's the faux apology that never quite. Oh, okay, got it. And you just sort of check it off your bingo card, and
it costs you $0 to not talk.
I mean, really.
It's like, and there's the post where they were always advocates and they were always, defenders or whatever. And it's like, okay.
And even just the whole, if you really have some free time, the whole like Gygax thing is fascinating. Like, I remember reading a deep dive about like Gary and D&D and Wizards and all of that, like, and sort of the family, feud there. A lot of, lot of history.
It's fascinating.
There's some wild stuff in WotC's history, I'll tell you that. Anyway, let's move on here. Turn the corner to the finisher. It's summertime and the weather is hot. And when I say hot, it's fireball hot. It's casserole in the oven hot. It's, quote, this sultry version of Evan's voice hot. And when the weather outside is frightful, it makes the gears start spinning. So tell me, what is your custom card inspiration from your current heat-induced delirium, Reuben?
Well, you've been seeing me do this all show. I live in Southern California, and it's smoldering like a teen heartthrob out here. There's a reason why fully played armored legions never successfully invaded the San Fernando Valley. Okay, maybe there's more than one reason, but regardless, it's been hot as heck out here. So my card would be called Valley of Fire, and it's a land that deals unpreventable damage, but also has unreasonably high upkeep costs. Because my rent is through the roof.
Erin?
Well, I don't know about this summer heat you all are talking about. I don't know her because it is 62 degrees outside right now. So my card would be called Midsummer Night's Dream. It lets you draw 2, discard 1, and actually exist comfortably where you live.
Well, let me tell you, Orlando, Florida, the devil's armpit. Nowhere on earth is more miserable than the arrival's door at Orlando International. So my card would be a mono black burn spell that deals 2 damage to a creature and mills 2 cards, called Swamp Ass. And
even worse when Evan doesn't pick you up.
Wow.
A man forgets one time. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you for having me. And chat, join me in thanking Evan for powering through.
Yes.
He was not feeling well on Monday. We did have to cancel the top 10s for the week. He's still not feeling 100%, but he powered through for you all. I think he did a phenomenal job.
Yes, absolutely. Kudos.
We certainly appreciate it. Thank you, Reuben.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And as is mentioned in the chat, I am going to be on this week's Brainstorm Brewery talking about D&D things. So you can check that out too.
Very nice. And thank you guys in the chat. I appreciate it. As we move here to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com, Alter Sleeves, and Cubamajigs. My co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Reuben Bressler, you guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.